Is it one of the world's leading gins at this stage?
Well, if we look at some of the Nielsen, say in North America, we are now, in terms of the super premium and ultra premium, we're in the top 7, we're in the top 8 in the US from zero, which is quite a
Hang on a second. Within 4 years?
Yes, yeah, and we're competing with the best the world has to offer.
The Architects of Business, with EY Entrepreneur of the Year, telling the inspirational stories behind Ireland's most successful entrepreneurs.
Hello and welcome to the Architects of Business, made in partnership with EY Entrepreneur of the Year, where you will hear the inspirational stories of some of Ireland's most successful entrepreneurs. I'm Sonia Lennon, broadcasting remotely at this time, and on this week's show, I catch up with Pat Rigney, the creator of Drumshanbo Gunpowder Gin, already one of the world's most successful gin brands after just 4 years in existence. The Shed Distillery experienced a stunning new visitor centre opened this month in County Leitrim, despite the twin terrors of COVID and Brexit. If you haven't already done so, click subscribe to get a brand new show directly into your feed. Pat Rigney of the Shed Distillery, I'm so delighted to have you on Architects of Business for the second time. I think it's safe to say that your story has evolved considerably, not least because of the twin terrors of COVID and Brexit, but also because of the organic growth of Drumshanbo Gin into 60 territories across the world. Remind us, just before we go forward, the birth of the Shed Distillery is, I suppose, an extraordinarily human story. How did it all start?
Well, it started in 2014 on the 21st of December when we opened the distillery. And at that stage, we had one employee. And our vision was to create what we call remarkable brands that would compete in the best in the world. We were based at a social enterprise, the food hub in Drumshanbo. I had a lot of experience in the drinks industry for many years. And we started out really on a journey that has taken us to the point now where we're on sale in 60 markets around the world. We have 50 employees. We're still in growth despite the huge challenges of COVID. And our lead brand, Drumshanbo Gunpowder Irish Gin, is competing with the best brands in the world in the most challenging marketplaces, from the United States to Australia and across Asia.
I'm going to ask you about that because I find you have a very interesting viewpoint on why the brand over the product has succeeded. But let's go back a little bit to Leitrim and to, I suppose, the deep embedding of your business into, as you said yourself, what was initially a social enterprise. So this facility was dormant. The community was in dire need of employment, and you swept in with very deep sectoral skills. In what way is the Shed holding on to its social enterprise credentials?
Well, I hope that we continue to do that, and that will always be at the core of what we do. We're actually physically based at a social enterprise. So where we are, we lease it from the local community, and everything that we do there is connected with the local communities. The whole site is the former Laird's Jam Factory that unfortunately went out of business. And this site had been semi-vacant for many, many years, and the community had put together a group of people to try and generate some jobs in the area. Enterprise Ireland were involved, and when I went to meet these folks back in late 2013 and into 2014, we struck a chord immediately, and it's great connection, great karma, and they couldn't do enough for us. And so when we started the distillery, we started to hire from the local area. The distiller came from the United States, Brian Taft, who's an outstanding individual, so we didn't have those skills. But one by one, we hired people from the area, many of whom have been unemployed for quite some time, up to 8 years. And we trained, or they we trained them, and they've worked with us with a great attitude to create something very special. So I think it's at the root of everything that we do, and we will continue to be located there and continue to work with the local community for years to come.
Now, I have to say that the facility which is appearing behind you looks more Neverland than Neglect at the moment. You have transformed, which was a building that was much unloved for a long time, into something extremely special.
Yes. Initially, we put a lot of effort into getting the inside of the building working with all the equipment for distillation, bottling, maturation, and all the various things that we needed to do. And then we undertook a project to bring visitors to the distillery so they can see our story and experience the brand and see for themselves that we distill every drop at the distillery and take that with them around the world. So we've invested a considerable amount of money in this project. We're very proud of the fact that it was designed in Belfast, translated then by a local architect, built by local craftsmen. And then many other parts of the building are from the north of Ireland, including the greenhouse from Portrush, the lighting, and so on. But I have a wonderful team, and Eva Kelly, who is Bill Kelly's daughter from Kelly's Hotel, has been working with us for a number of years, and she has led this project with Joe Dolan, and has done an extraordinary job to make it happen, because it's a hugely complex task.
So when was this idea hatched? What was the incubation point?
Well, I think once the distillery was up and running, so around the 2016, 2017 mark, I began to think about building a visitor's experience. We obviously had to design it. We had to get planning permission. We had to ensure we had enough cash to build it without putting the business at risk. And then we started, and obviously we had some delays due to COVID. But we're hoping to bring 30,000 people there over the next 12 months. We've already got 20 new jobs in situ since we opened in September, earlier this month. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's a bit like building Knock Airport. You know, when you build something like this, you hope people will come along, and so far, so good.
And do you think there's a capacity there to expand your workforce even more?
Yes, I'm sure there is. I mean, our business thankfully is growing through COVID and all the challenges of COVID. We've about 50 in total employed now at the moment. I'm sure there is opportunity to grow. We'd probably become a little more automated in certain aspects of the business. I'm sure a lot of it's quite manual and handmade at the moment. But I think, yes, there is capacity to grow more employment and good employment and local employment.
And I think, funny, you know, employment is always used as a metric for success. It's more than that, though, isn't it? Because what you've created at the distillery has huge ripple effects into the community and creates a buoyancy around it.
Yes, I certainly hope so. And we have, we work very closely with Leitrim County Council, all the local businesses and hotels now in relation to the visitors' experience. And we hope that it will be a destination. So people will be inclined to visit Drumshanbo, visit the Shed Distillery, hopefully have a wonderful time, participate in the greenway that's nearby, go to the Rigney mines, which is 10 kilometers up the road, maybe go on the Shannon, stay in the local hotels. So everybody wins. But the support we've got from the community has been exceptional. And, we would not be where we are today without that. And that needs to continue. It's the old traditional metal at work. And it's very gratifying, but you're only as good as your last performance. So we got to keep on it.
So I'm going to come back and ask you in a moment about I suppose that the challenges in getting the doors open for the experience, and the future challenge of how to navigate COVID with a personal experience. But I have to ask you, and I know that you are a man whose blood is coursing with humility, but there is a sort of an underlying sense that you are the unelected president of Leitrim. Leitrim is a small enough community, but they reach out pretty far. Am I right?
They've got an incredible reach all over the world, and we're getting messages from all over the world, wishing us the best of luck with this new venture from everywhere from the US to Australia and Asia. I am actually now a ambassador for Leitrim. They've asked me to become an ambassador for the county, which I am, and very delighted to do that.
Global ambassador.
Well, yes, if somebody wants to invest in Leitrim, they have my phone. They get my phone number. It's great.
Excellent.
Yeah, but it's I'm very aware it's a very competitive business we're in. We're up against global brands with deep pockets, and we just have to stay very focused on our business.
So let's talk about that. The Drumshanbo Gunpowder Gin, a phenomenal success. The first brand and product out of the stable. How does a small run producer, admittedly with great potential to make more, go in head to head with the big guys with the deepest pockets in the world and win? How does that happen?
Well, I mean, I know this sounds a bit cliche, but you actually need a little bit of luck along the way. And I think we got a little bit of fair wind on this one. I think the brand itself has the X factor, and sometimes it just happens, and everybody's looking for it. So I think our brand is very special, both in how it's put together, the story behind it, the fact that there's a real person behind the brand, this curious mind of PJ Rigney, and we distill it all ourselves, and it's presented in a certain way. So there is a bit of magic, and sometimes that just happens. And we all look at the X Factor and all these shows, and sometimes somebody walks out and it just clicks. And it's very hard to manufacture that, and it's very hard to replicate that. So I think that's the first aspect of it. So we started off with a great brand and a great story, but we have an extraordinary team. We have very resourceful people from all different backgrounds who have come together to do something really special. They do not necessarily come from the more formal backgrounds in terms of education and so on, although they're highly educated, but they have done great things. And I think that's been absolutely critical. I'm one guy, I can only do so much. And I think very quickly we captured the imagination of Mr. Retailer, Mr. Importer around the world, and bit by bit the consumer then has followed, and then we've built momentum. And we're working with family businesses in every part of the world. So because we're not a multinational, we work with family companies, which means we build very close relationships with them. We move very quickly. As I always say, perfection is the enemy. We will make it perfect in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, but it's all about speed and it's about momentum. And that's how we try to operate.
What I love about the brand that you've built is that it hinges off story, and your alter ego PJ Rigney is at the heart of that story. He's a very evocative guy. He's very rounded and mysterious at the same time. The Experience Centre is his world. You must have been given advice to shelve it, to not continue in these uncertain times.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. And the challenge with these visitors' experiences is that they don't necessarily make a whole lot of money. And in fact, they can cost you money in the long haul. But we were committed to do it. I was committed also to Drumshanbo to actually make this happen. We think in the long haul, this is the right decision, and we can take the long view because we're not answering to shareholders in a public market. So we decided just to get on with it. And I think already we're seeing a huge reaction, not just in Ireland from those who've been there or have heard about it, but from our distributor partners around the world. It's given them a real boost of confidence that this company and this brand, these guys are serious and they're going to stay the course with us. So we're certainly getting that reaction, and which is very important during these tough times.
So it's a signifier of intent from yes. The shed. Fantastic.
I think so, yeah. And more than we had imagined, to be honest with you. We didn't expect that.
That's amazing. So talk to us a little bit about COVID, and then we'll come to the dreaded Brexit. for a lot of businesses, COVID meant a seismic shift in everything from revenue to how things are done on a day-to-day basis. What were the impacts for you?
Yeah, I mean, the first impact was, I go right back to the beginning of March, it was an absolute shock of what was coming our way. I have strong relations in Asia, and I have very good relations in China, and they were explaining to me what was going on, and it was horrifying. And so we were very, very concerned that the bottom would fall out of the market. So we did a short period in March where we supplied sanitizer in the Northwest and to certain hospitals around the country for a period, and Tesco. We were very proud to supply them on a 24-hour basis with a relay system, just because it was a shortage. Once we got through that, we got back to business. And what happened was that our retail business everywhere performed particularly well. So we were delighted with that. Obviously, the hotel, restaurant, bar business and our partners in that end of the world are having a terrible time. And that's obviously very difficult for us and very challenging. The other area that's very tough for us is travel retail, which is all the airports around the world where we do a lot of business, and ferries and cruise ships. That evaporated. And for a period, South Africa was closed. So South Africa closed twice. That's an important market for us. And reopened and then closed again, and it's reopened again. We had issues about, in one or two cases, of getting paid and so on, as you might expect. But we just worked our way through it. Everybody muscled in, and yeah, we just got to keep going.
And as a company then, say 2019, you know, in revenue terms, where is the Shed as an overall business?
Well, our financial year is actually the end of this month, and we will our revenue will be in and around the 9 million euros, and that is, you know, that'll be up you know, a couple of million in the previous year. So it's a fairly decent performance in very tough circumstances, and that's a credit to the team and to the brand, and the fact that we had some momentum before COVID.
So where is that growth then? Because, you know, a whole sector of your business is crucified. Yeah. How did you manage to make up that growth in these times?
Well, much of that has come from retail in all markets. You know, so it's and we had an innovation pipeline with various new initiatives that were coming on stream before COVID, not knowing that COVID was coming, and that has carried us as well. I mean, the real test is going to be as we come into 2021 to see, can we maintain that momentum, and can we maintain that growth? We're doing particularly well in places like the United States, in the UK, France, Germany. You know, Ireland has held up very well under the circumstances. I think the fact that we're in many markets has been a huge help. We're also seeing a change at the retailer end, where they're beginning to back what they call the winning brands. So maybe they're not carrying as many brands as they did in the past. The consumer spending less time in the store, so they will maybe manage their shelf in a different way than they did pre-COVID. So maybe that's something that's helping us a little bit as well.
Happened with gin in the public psyche? How come 1 minute none of us were talking about gin, and the next minute everybody was talking about it, and all of a sudden every bar had 15 gins on offer? How did that happen?
I think consumers are looking for an experience, and they're looking to explore a bit like folks explore with wine and food. Gin is a very interesting way of having a really interesting experience, and maybe trying a number of different brands. What we're seeing now is that consumers are beginning to settle into a smaller selection of brands and staying with them. They're the ones that they fall in love with and they go back to. If you go to just about anywhere in the world, they'll say, "Oh my God!" When you bring out wonderful gunpowder, Drumshanbo gunpowder Irish gin, they'll say, "Oh my God, not another gin." The Mr. Buyer is saying, "God, please don't bring one out," because, you know, he's got so many in front of him. I was in one retailer in Italy recently. Now, it was a specialty store. I need 620 gins. So how do you
Wow.
survive in that? So we've massive competition, you know. So there's local gins, regional gins, international gins, and everywhere you go, there's intense competition. So we really have to be on our game at all times if we are going to get the listing, retain the listing.
And you spoke about the sort of magical quality of, you know, Drumshanbo gunpowder gin in terms of the X factor, and how, and you spoke about luck, I suppose, importantly.
Yeah.
I would love to hear about the newer brands within the stable and how replicable that X factor piece is.
Yeah, I mean, the X factor, I mean, I'm fortunate to have been around in the industry for a little while. I mean, I worked in Bailey's for 10 years, and Bailey's had the magic, and they were they had the first mover advantage, and they managed the brand incredibly well over many years. And I described them as the Google heads at that time. I was around when Malibu was created. I managed that brand for a while, and many of these brands were just created by individuals in a particular part of the world that just had an idea. I created Sheridan's and so on. And sometimes it just works. And people post-rationalize why it works. And that's why many of the larger drinks companies struggle to create the new brands, because when you put it through a formula, you don't always get the magic, and the magic's very hard to create. So, you know, the X factor that's in Drumshanbo gunpowder has certainly carried us to where we are today.
Is it one of the world's leading gins at this stage?
Well, if we look at some of the Nielsen, say in North America, we are now, in terms of the super premium and ultra premium, we're in the top 7, we're in the top 8 in the US from zero, which is quite a
hang on a second, within 4 years.
Yes. Yeah. And we're competing with the best the world has to offer. So, but, you know, we have to maintain our position. We have to enhance our position. We can't sit on our laurels. It's very early days. You know, we're small, but we've got great partners. You know,
So Pat, when the doors are closed and the lights are off and the mics are off and nobody can see you, do you ever just do a dance of delight and become so unfettered in your joy with what you've done? Because it is a phenomenal achievement.
I do pinch myself, particularly with the visitors experience. When we opened that, I pinch, is this really happening? Can this really be true? I do. I suppose we're just so busy sometimes, and the COVID thing has probably put a little bit of a damper. When it's over, I'm going to take a few weeks off, and I'm gonna party. But I haven't had a chance to do that because of COVID.
This is interesting, because when it's over, you know, the historical data in economical terms will tell us that we're all going to party.
Yes.
So when we're out of this, the opportunity for the growth in your business is phenomenal.
I hope so. I think people will be desperate to travel. I think they'll be, you know, very keen to go out and spend time with friends and in bars and restaurants who've had such a tough time. And so I would hope there will be great joy. And it's very interesting. I have a message from China back in February from a French gentleman that we do a lot of work with. And he predicted exactly what would happen before it happened. And he said at the end of it all, it'll be like the Second World War. You know, when it's over, people will party. We just have to wait for the vaccine. But I think there will be an uplift for sure.
We were talking to Mary McKenna of Tour America, one of your alumni of Entrepreneur of the Year with EY, and she has predicted a travel boom in 2022. I certainly hope they'll be on cruise ships drinking Drumshanbo while they're doing it. I guess we have to talk about Brexit because it is the mess that won't go away at the moment. What is the impact on your suite of products and brands?
Brexit, I think probably the biggest concern at the moment would be in the area of transportation and the land bridge. I would be deeply concerned about that and getting goods in and out, particularly for our smaller markets across Europe where goods go groupage. So we would have product leaving almost every other day, and it's being consolidated and it's going land bridge into continental Europe. So there's going to be delays, significant delays, I expect on that.
There were pundits on the radio this morning talking about a backlog of 4,000 trucks into the UK, which is just, it's not viable. So what are the options for Ireland now? A scramble to look at other routes being called from the Oireachtas to yesterday, you know. If you were put in the seat of leadership here, what would you be doing about this?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is, and I heard some other comments on it, we have to have the direct ferries into northern France on a daily basis, maybe one, maybe two, whatever it takes to get over the hump. And we will need some support on the cost of that, because for a transition period, land bridge is the cheapest and fastest way of getting stuff into continental Europe by and large. A lot of what we would ship for the smaller markets, you know, maybe it's 6 pallets, it gets consolidated with something else, goes in a truck. Maybe that truck drops something off in the UK and keeps going to France or whatever, or Belgium. That's going to be lost to us, I suspect, in the short to medium term. So I think the ferries, with clarity around daily services, with some governmental support, that's probably number one priority right now, if they did nothing else.
And so the UK as a market for you, what percentage of your overall revenue is that?
It's a very important market. It's about 15% of our market, and we're doing well in the UK. As we understand it at the moment, there doesn't appear to be tariffs that will be applied to our brands. Having said that, there's going to be a lot more paperwork. But we generally ship through Northern Ireland, so that we just see how that pans out. So it may not be so we're very close to the border, so it may not be as challenging.
Punitive.
Yeah, we'll see. We're just waiting to see where that goes.
And so with that uncertainty, you're in 60 markets already. In terms of the other brands and the growth potential within the company, we haven't spoken about them. You might just give us a little introduction.
Sure. We have Drumshanbo single pot still Irish whiskey. So that's the first whiskey from Connacht in over 105 years. So that's on the market now, and we're delighted with that. It's on allocation because the quantities are relatively small. And think
sold out first batch.
Sold out, and we just can't keep up with demand. That's really a function of probably a number of things. First of all, we didn't produce a huge amount. The quality is exceptional.
What is a run? What was the first run? What sort of quantities are you talking about?
We can literally make a couple of casks a day. It's small,
right,
which is not very much. But there's a huge focus on the craft, on the quality. Our single pot still is distilled with Irish oats and malt barley. It's done. It's like a Premier Grand Cru wine. Okay. So it's a real top end. So we have a limited quantity. Great reaction so far. We will have more coming on stream over the next few years. And then we have our vodka, which is called Sausage Tree Pure Irish Vodka. And that we're very excited about. And we're about to roll that out in 2021 into European and North American markets. So that is a vodka that's based on with some ingredients from Africa, from my travels there. There's a fruit called the sausage tree fruit. It's a purifier. And we mix that with Irish nettles, which is also a purifier, and Irish grain, and then we create this amazing vodka in a beautiful package.
And do you think vodka has the potential to, because whiskey has its own market, and I can imagine that there is a particularly for a premium product, there's a huge demand in China and Japan, and that there's it's a very different thing, I suppose.
Yes.
Could vodka be the next big thing?
Well, vodka is a huge category as it stands. It's a much bigger category than gin around the world, and we just need a small part of that to make it successful. And I think it complements what we're doing with Drumshanbo Gunpowder Irish Gin very well. I honestly believe Drumshanbo Gunpowder Irish Gin will be our flagship brand, and the others will be there to support it. That's probably where we'll end up.
Ooh, I'm excited about that. That sounds wonderful. I suppose the real test of the mettle of any business, but moreover any business owner, is how they cope in crisis. Has the alumni of Entrepreneur of the Year been a support to you, and have you been a support to it during these times?
The simple answer is yes. They've been a support to me in many different ways, where I had particular issues that I just didn't know how to deal with, or I just needed somebody to talk to. So, in relation to hygiene, human resources, dealing with certain, private issues that I just maybe wouldn't want to speak to somebody else about. And I was able to get some solace and support, and it might have only been a 5-minute conversation. I hope I've been a support as well on a number of occasions where people just wanted a bit of advice or just a suggestion. But it's a great network. Yeah.
Wow, it's amazing, because every time we talk about the network, it all comes back to trust, that you're with a group of like-minded people who trust each other, even when the chips are down.
Absolutely. And everything is based on trust, and trust is a very delicate flower. When the chips are down, there's only certain people you really feel that you can talk to. And I would feel, very comfortable asking folks on the alumni group for advice. A great example would be Rachel in the Arboretum in Loughlin Bridge, who gave us some wonderful advice on our visitors experience.
Fabulous.
We worked with Pat McDonough on Supermax with sanitizer during a period when there was none available to supply him with some, and so on. So, everybody quietly and discreetly kind of helping each other out.
Pulling together. And if there's one other element of the group other than trust, it's resilience. The chips are never down for long with this gang. Pat, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with me today on Architects of Business. It, as always, is my pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for listening and watching Architects of Business, made in partnership with EY Entrepreneur of the Year. Thanks to the whole team here at Joe, and to our entrepreneur today, the fabulous Pat Rigney. If you haven't already done so, click subscribe to never miss a show.